And we're back. First off, thank you so much for all the positive feedback I've been getting. I love your comments. I read them all. It's been a long time since I was making these videos, and just getting back into it to have such overwhelming support is just wonderful. Thank you. So keep liking these videos. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any. And share these out. If you find this information valuable, if you feel this gives people a better understanding of the mechanics of the economy, share these out and that'll help this channel grow. One other thing, please let me know in the comments what you think, but these latest videos I've been doing haven't been scripted like the old ones were. The old ones were tightly scripted and edited. These I'm just speaking more naturally, more like having a conversation, and they're easier to do. I can probably do a lot more videos this way if you guys like this style. I can always go back to the tightly edited, really well scripted ones, but let me know what you think, whatever you like better. I'm really curious what you guys think. I like having the more conversational style. Okay, let's get into this. The tax tree. This is a different way to visualize the Laffer curve. This is one you can share with your kids, share with young people, and there's some older folks that just can't wrap their head around it, and maybe this visualization will be helpful to them. And it was a little bit fun to make, I have to say. Uh, so let's get into it. This is the concept. The Laffer curve is the concept that higher tax rates do not necessarily mean increased government revenues. It's a economic law that politicians seem to just want to ignore. So, who is Art Laffer? What is this Laffer curve? Art Laffer is an economist. He got his PhD at Stanford. He was a professor at the University of Chicago, the same place Milton Friedman used to teach at. He also taught at USC, and he had the great honor of being a distinguished visiting professor at Pepperdine University. And again, he was honored with an incredible recognition with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor you can get, in 2019. So here's the Laffer curve. It's pretty simple, but a lot of people just can't seem to contemplate it, can't seem to understand it. It's that, and I've talked about this before in past videos, it's usually around 15% of national income that the government will maximize its revenues. I estimate it'd be about $8 trillion that the US government could collect if it had a national income tax, total income tax of 15%. The higher you go, and we're much higher than that, the less and less revenue the government gets. And then the lower you go under 15%, the less and less government gets. It's easy to understand. It's zero. If there's a 0% tax rate, the government's not going to get any money. At 100% tax rate, the government's not going to get any money. And the younger the people are that I explain this to, the quicker they get it. It's kind of interesting. They know it at 100% tax rate, they're not going to want to go to work. uh, People at 100% tax rate are not going to invest. They're not going to do anything other than black market activities to try and get by. So that's what the Laffer curve's all about. So I'm always talking about this US debt clock. The link is also in the description as well. At the time of this recording, we're $28 trillion in debt, and we're only collecting $3.4 trillion in tax revenue. Like I showed in the previous slides, we could be arguably collecting about $8 trillion if we lowered taxes and kept growing the economy, and then we'd getting a tiny sliver of a very large economic pie that keeps growing and resulting in more and more revenue. Why we don't do this is a subject for another video, but it is daunting. If we were actually able to stop this debt from growing, this ticker's constantly counting up. If we could stop it from growing and start paying it off at the rate of $100 a second, it would still take billions of years to pay off the debt. But we're not even paying it down at all. It just keeps growing. It is horrifying to think what future generations are going to be saddled with and how this will not result in an obscene amount of inflation. Um, Out of control spending and terrible tax policy is just going to make it harder and harder on future generations. So I came up with this visualization called the tax tree. And the tree is representing our economy, and our farmer represents you and me. Economy can't work without people in it. So the farmer's the people, the tree is the economy. So what does this farmer do? He puts his effort into it, he puts his resources into it, and he produces a lot of great fruit. He waters that tree, he fertilizes it, and he harvests it, and he has a market to sell to. He's selling his cherries to all these great customers, and you'll notice over here he has a few cherries to take home to his family. He's doing great. And Uncle Sam over here representing our government has a very low tax rate in getting some of those cherries. Works out great. But Uncle Sam gets a little greedy. One of my favorite things that I often tell people, there's no greed more egregious or inescapable than government greed. When he takes all this extra tax revenue, or we should call them cherries in this case, there's fewer in the basket to sell. His customer base shrinks. And he's not so happy. Look at this little bit he has left just to take home for himself. It's not a good situation. And in the next cycle, what happens is, since there's less money to get, this new tax guy, our new administration, wants to start cutting off limbs. If he can't get enough cherries, he's going to start cutting off limbs. And that's shrinking the economy. The higher the tax rate, the smaller your economy is going to get, the more that tree suffers and shrinks. Fewer customers, fewer crops to harvest, and much less to take home. And there you go. This is his next harvest. And guess what? Not producing enough tax revenue for this administration. So he's going to take even more branches, taking all these cherries, so little left to harvest for his customers that keep shrinking in size, so little to take home. This is the concept of the Laffer curve. It's a law of economics. When you get into these higher and higher tax levels, you are shrinking the economy and the government gets less and less. So what's next? Like we were saying before, the higher the tax rate, the more the economy shrinks, the higher the tax rate, productive behavior goes out the window. It discourages productive behavior. And our poor little farmer winds up giving up on his tree. It's just dying. And he goes to work for McDonald's. And our new administration is only getting a few pennies now in tax revenue at this exorbitantly high tax rate. So let's go back to the original plan. You have a healthy economy, you have a vibrant customer base, a nice crop to harvest, a nice batch to take home, and a batch for the government. And in this scenario, for every tree, the government gets one basket. And this is a scenario where the tax rate is low enough, the economy can grow. And what does our farmer do? He invests and he grows his orchard, and now he has 3 trees to harvest. He has those resources to expand. His customer base grows, and he's got a lot more cherries to take home. And what happened? The government actually reduced its tax rate, but doubled its revenue. In the past scenario, we had 1 tree, 1 basket the government would take. In this expanded economy, we have 3 trees and 2 baskets the government takes. So basically lowering the tax rate, lowering the percentage of the economy it's taking of the economic output, and he's getting double the revenue. Lower tax rate, double the revenue. So there you go. It's a very simple explanation. But I have a surprise for you guys. Let's hear Art Laffer himself talk about the Laffer curve.
So you asked me, what is the Laffer curve? Now, in all honesty, the Laffer curve, as you may see, is my profile, but no, it's not. The Laffer curve is the relationship between tax rates and total tax revenues. And by the way, I did not name it the Laffer curve, and it's been around for centuries and centuries. In fact, the first reference to it I really know is in the Muqaddimah. In 1381, Ibn Khaldun described it this way: at the beginning of dynasties, tax rates are low and revenues are high. At the end of dynasties, tax rates are high and revenues are low. That's the sort of logic behind it. But let me, if I can, say, how much would you work if you were taxed at 100%? So that every time you go to the office, instead of getting a check, you get a bill. Obviously, you wouldn't work at all, and there'd be no work, but also the tax revenues would be zero. Now, that's this point right here on the Laffer curve. At 100% tax rates, no one will find there's any incentive whatsoever to work. They won't work, and tax revenues will be zero as well. Now, as you start lowering tax rates to 99, to 98, to 97, somewhere along the line, all of a sudden, you're going to find it worthwhile to start working, and you're going to see revenues starting to rise. The other point of the Laffer curve that's fixed is at zero tax rates. At zero tax rates, if there are no taxes, of course the government's not going to collect any revenues. We're going to have a lot of output, employment, and production, but there'll be no revenues, and that's this point down here. And again, at this point, if they start raising tax rates, as they start raising tax rates, what you're going to find is the revenues are going to increase, but they will increase at slower and slower rates. And these two curves will come at a point, the maximum point out here. Now, the key thing about the Laffer curve that makes it fairly interesting for politicians is to remember it's a pedagogic device, not an explicit measure of any one country. But what it does show you is that there are two tax rates that give the same amount of revenue. There's a high tax rate and a low tax rate. No country should ever want to be in that high tax rate range. I mean, why would you ever want a tax at this point where if you lowered tax rates, you collected more money and you have more output, employment, and production? So this is the Laffer curve, which really brings together the debate about taxes. There are two effects taxes have on revenues. Number one, which we call the arithmetic effect. If you raise tax rates, you do collect more revenue per dollar of tax base. That's the arithmetic effect. But there's also the economic effect, which if you increase tax rates, you reduce the attractiveness of doing the activity, and you will shrink the tax base. These two effects, the arithmetic effect and the economic effect, always work in the opposite direction. In this range, the arithmetic effect wins, and you get more revenues by raising tax rates. In this range, the economic effect wins, which by raising tax rates, you actually get less revenues because you do more and more damage to the tax base. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Laffer curve. Thank you.
So, just like Art was saying, in the situation we're in right now, our tax rates are too high, and we have an administration that wants to raise them even higher, meaning less revenues. Our economic tree is getting hacked away at. It's very, very disappointing and very frustrating. I'll give you the link so you can watch the original video to this. I also have other links for Dan Mitchel, who gives a great explanation of the Laffer curve if you want to dig in a little deeper. I'm going to do some more videos on taxes and talk about what our current administration is doing. It should know better. It does know better why it would want to create higher taxes and get less revenue, discourage productive behavior, get people investing less, people not working as much, creating less and less growth and economic opportunity. Why is that happening? Why is that their goal? There's a lot of cynical answers out there. There's a lot of answers that people think, well, they're just stupid. Well, it's a little more complicated than that, and we're going to get into it. Once again, I want to say thanks for all you're doing out there. Keep sharing these if you